So everybody, welcome to this special webinar talking about the CTD Planner Certification process. This is Nicole Embertson. I'm the chair of the Center for Technical Development and also lead our certification program. I know I've got a few others on the line who are also part of that program. Bobby Lindemulder helps us with our farm planner certification. Myself, Nicole, I do the dairy planner certification. And we've got Ryan who does the Riparian certification. So as things come up there, as I kind of describe more about what those are and what that is, we may have ability to answer some very specific questions about any of the certifications. So to get started, to give you a little bit of a roadmap today on what we're going to be talking about, first I want to just kind of talk about a little bit of background of the CTD. While most of you may have an understanding or have engaged with the CTD at some point, I just want to give a couple highlights for you to give you a little context and maybe also open your eyes to a few other things that the CTD might do that's going to assist you. Of course, I'm going to talk quite a bit about the planner certifications, both the CTD and NRCS certifications, so that you can have an understanding of how they're the same or foundational with each other and how they are different, why certification even matters, how to apply for said certification, all the support opportunities and tools that we have available to you to get you through that process. And as I mentioned, I'll be sure to have a bit of time at the end to do a Q&A session for any remaining questions that you may have that aren't addressed during the webinar or for anything that you want more clarity on. So to get started, I just briefly want to talk a little bit about the CTD. This is generally what our message and our partner structure is. This later will come into a little bit more relevance when we talk about training. So the Center for Technical Development was created and supported by the Washington State Conservation Commission for the purpose of ensuring that conservation districts and employees, like everyone on this line, have the proper tools and expertise to consistently plan and implement conservation programs in collaboration with all of the partners listed. And so essentially what the CTD is trying to do is provide you all of the things you need to do the best you possibly can when it comes to your planning expertise. Certification being one of the bigger things that we offer and what we're really going to focus on today, but also having good training opportunities available to achieve and support that certification, having all the planning tools and templates you need to do the planning that your certification is relevant for, having mentoring and support to get you there, communication and outreach to keep you in the knowledge stream about what trainings and things are available to you to continue your growth and learning experience, the technical expertise and science and data support to help support the practices, the information, and all the other things you use in your planning process, quality assurance to make sure that you're not going to slip through the cracks and that you're always being held to a good standard that has a nice base underneath it to help you achieve what you need to do. That's really relevant for those individuals who are in small districts who may not have the ability to connect and communicate with others in their office, that we have a process to ensure that they know they're doing a great job. And lastly, leadership or any type of support we can provide to you and to partners to make sure that you're getting all the tools, information, and otherwise that you really need. So to kind of start us into the certification realm, one thing I wanted to show here, and I know this is where we get the most questions about certification, is the confusion between the NRCS planner designations and the CTD planner certification. So hopefully this might be the most valuable part of the webinar for many people. So let's start by talking about the NRCS planner designation process and what that is, what that means. So this is essentially anybody who is going to be working with NRCS on planning and or all general conservation planners. So the NRCS planner designations are not specific to any one planning discipline. They are for all conservation planning disciplines, riparian, farm, dairy, forestry, LID, so on and so forth. Anything that you're doing in the planning, NRCS has designed and selected courses and trainings that they think have value to all conservation planners at different levels. So NRCS has 4 different types or levels of planner designation, starting with apprentice. This is kind of the foundational information that you need to kind of get started in the planning process. This does not mean that you are authorized to sign conservation plans. It means that you are attaining and gaining the knowledge and experience needed to be a good conservation planner and working towards a greater role if that's of interest. That greater role would then be a certified NRCS planner. So that is the number 2 term they use, meaning you've met all those apprentice trainings and now you've added a whole bunch of others. In particular, the certified level is that conservation planning part 2 or boot camp many of you have heard of. That's a really large element to that certified level. Once you achieve all of the trainings required for that certified level, NRCS now says you are a planner that can regularly deliver conservation planning assistance to clients, you can sign off on plans, and that you understand what you're doing and have confidence in signing off on a plan and taking responsibility for that. A level up in the NRCS world would be a master planner. So a master planner in the NRCS planner designation is someone who has met obviously the apprentice and certified level and has attained additional expertise on top of that. A master planner is someone who can then teach others how to do planning, and that is part of their role. So they're someone who has very good knowledge of the planning process, who can execute that with excellence, and who can then sign off on or work with apprentice level and or certified level NRCS planners. There's also the technical planner, which is a side level of planning. So this is a specialist planner who has already attained some of the earlier information within apprentice, but then has a couple of extra things onto that. So that person, it's an optional designation for folks who need that for providing technical assistance in certain capacities. So most of you are probably moving towards the apprentice or certified level so that you can document a certain set of knowledge, training, and skills that you have acquired, as well as if you are working in NRCS programs and you are writing and or signing off on any type of an NRCS plan, whether that be an EQIP contract, a CREP, or otherwise, you will need to attain at minimum the apprentice if someone can sign off for you, or the certified level if you are going to sign off on NRCS plans yourself. If you are solely a conservation district employee that will never write an NRCS plan, this entire process is optional. We recommend it's a great way to get a good foundation for general conservation planning, but it's not a required process for you to meet everything within there and go through the NRCS process if you are not going to write and need to sign NRCS plans. That's where the CTD comes into play. The CTD created our planner certification program for 2 reasons. One is that it's discipline specific. Unlike the NRCS planner designation, which solely is saying this is for general conservation, doesn't matter your expertise, we're raising that a level and saying ours is specific to a riparian, farm, or dairy planner, which are the 3 certifications we have at this time. We hope to add others such as forestry, etc. in the near future, but we're launching these 3 first. So it's a little bit different. However, I do want to stress that the CTD Planner Certification heavily uses the NRCS Planner Designation criteria as our foundation. The reason we do that is that the NRCS Planner Designation courses and content have been nationally vetted, are available through our state, and are supported by our NRCS partners, in addition to being great information and things that all planners really should know. So even though the NRCS planner designation is general, the CTD is building on that with specificity, so that even if you don't plan on being an NRCS plan writer in any way, if you're going through the CTD Planner Certification, you're most likely going to meet many of those criteria along the way. For instance, within the CTD Planner Certification process, we have 3 levels of expertise for any one of those planning disciplines. We start with level 1. Level 1, in addition to its own criteria, you need to meet the NRCS apprentice level trainings and offerings as part of achieving a level 1 approval within the CTD Planner certification. So it's a great way. What we're acknowledging here is that NRCS laid out a good planning foundation, and we are also adopting those criteria. Additionally, for level 2, which is saying you've achieved all level 1 information, but you've also leveled up, also requires the apprentice level. And then their little plus there is it's the apprentice level plus a few of the elements that are in the certified. As the CTD folks, we know that if you are going to be writing a plan, we certainly want you to have gone through the conservation planning course so that you know what the 9 steps of planning are. You even know how to write a plan. So that's the one little bit of a difference you might find that could have been a little confusing in the CTD planner certification guidance. And I will show that here in a little bit in the webinar so that you can see what I'm referencing, and I'll reiterate a few of these concepts as I go through. Lastly, within the CTD certification world, we also have a level 3, and this requires that you have met all of the NRCS certified planner designation courses and criteria. So that's how these 2 things build on each other. If you never plan on doing, as I mentioned, an NRCS plan, and you're not going through the NRCS planner designation process, just know that if you do the CTD planner certification, along the way, you will most likely meet all those criteria. Likewise, you do not, if you're doing the CTD planner certification, you do not have to necessarily pay attention to the NRCS planner designation criteria, as they will be outlined for you along the way. And there are definitely additional things we require that are specific to any one planning discipline. So hopefully that assists folks in better understanding how these 2 things are related, and that the CTD Planner certification process is using that NRCS planner designation process as a foundation, and that we are building specific discipline onto that. And I would like to just take a pause here. If anyone has questions about this, wants a little bit extra clarity, please type it into the chat box. I'm also going to temporarily unmute everybody so that if you have a question, I'm going to just take a pause here. Please feel free to chime in and ask. Okay, if someone did try to ask a question and you were talking, you might have been yourself on mute and or didn't type fast enough into the chat box per se, but hearing none, I'm going to continue on. If something comes up here into the chat box, I will certainly take a pause and answer it. Okay, so moving on from the foundations and the differentiation between these 2 things, but also hopefully you understand a lot of their similarities. I'm going to move on, although I'm going to pause. I did get a question here, and it says, can a level 2 CTD planner sign off on a plan? That's a great question, and maybe something I can clarify a little bit extra. The NRCS certification, as I mentioned, I said you have to be a certified level NRCS planner to sign off on a plan. That is extremely specific to an NRCS plan and signing off on. Within the CTD planner certification process, if you are writing a farm plan or a dairy plan or otherwise, we do not have set criteria on who can sign off on that. What we do have in our guidance is that someone who's a level 1 planner probably should have all their plans reviewed by a level 2 or 3 planner, such that they're probably inexperienced and could probably use a lot of that mentorship or assistance. but we don't currently have any criteria that says at what level can you sign off on a plan within the CTD Planner certification. I would also say you need to really check on your individual, maybe your district has a specificity, or the type of plan you're writing has a specificity for who is able to sign off on that, or if it's an NRCS plan. So hopefully that helps a little bit of that, knowing that I think it's a tad bit of a confusing process no matter what. And it's great no matter whatever type of planner you are to really pay attention to those little details and become very familiar with the types of plans that you're writing. If you're one of those lucky individuals who's a one-stop shop and writes all plans for everybody, I highly recommend, if possible, you find someone else in the state that can help maybe mentor you, or at least be your connection for asking those types of questions. And the CTD has Ask the Expert page, which hopefully will help connect you to someone who can help you with that. Because again, oftentimes certain types of plans have far more strict criteria than other types of plans. So hopefully that answers your question more than it provides additional questions. Okay. So the certification process, why would you even bother this minus the few things that I talked about there? One of the big reasons that we are really trying to encourage specifically the CTD Planner Certification Program is that we are really looking for a way, and have now provided a way, to verify a level of quality assurance in planners and planning to our districts and our partner agencies by having a certification process that outlines specific criteria that we have spent years creating, gathering, curating, and saying, yes, these are the things that this specific discipline of planning needs to meet for us to have confidence that they are doing what we expect them to be able to do. That's really valuable for our partner agencies such as ecology, such as EPA, Department of Agriculture, Fish and Wildlife, and just landowners as a whole, and so on. So that's the why, is that we really needed a verifiable process that could show a level of quality assurance. We're doing that by providing this certified process, as well as providing all of the support that you need to get there. So by certifying the district technical staff have the skills, abilities, and support to plan to a recognized level, that's really going to help our partner agencies say, yes, districts are doing a great job. That individual is doing a great job. And we're doing this by maintaining those discipline-specific certifications for you, by providing a continuing education program to not only encourage your growth and continue learning, but also sustain that expertise so that you are never behind on the times on what are the new plans that are necessary out there, what are the processes, what new practice updates have happened, what is the evolution in science and practice, design and implementation, etc. Making sure that you've got that, and enabling access to all the tools and templates that you need in order to produce a really quality plan, to keep engaged on what is the current information that is needed in those plans and planning process, and even better, to feel like you are part of a whole in our state. Whereas if we're all using the same templates and tools from one district to the next, we've got consistency. That also helps us a lot with partnering together, with mentoring, and for working across those boundaries. And lastly, to connect and build on a partner certification, that is that NRCS one. So it was very valuable to the CTD that NRCS had already provided a nationally vetted process that we could build upon so that we have that foundation. Just like we use NRCS standards when we are doing planning, we had value in using the NRCS certification process and training events for building upon what we've created with the CTD Planner Certification Program. And just to give folks also an idea of who's doing what here, this data that we're showing here is on the left-hand side. The blue bin is the NRCS Planner Designation levels that I showed you, those 4 levels, and the percent of district folks polled who are going after that. And on the other side, we've got in green the CTD Planner certifications and the 3 disciplines that we currently have and how many folks are going for that. So this was just in late 2019. And you can see that in both cases, there's a good contingency of folks not pursuing either one of these. Amazingly enough, a lot of that is because folks don't know what this is. So thank every one of you for being on the webinar to educate yourself a little bit more on what are all of these certifications, what's the difference, and how do you achieve those. But we have a lot of folks who are achieving that certified level of NRCS planner designation, which is absolutely fantastic because that will catalyze you within the CTD planner certification to get to that level 2. That level 1 being someone who's new and getting started and going in the process. That level 2 is someone who's got some expertise, is comfortable writing plans, and that level 3 is that person who's been writing plans, they know what they're doing, they have confidence, and they can share and teach their expertise to others. So there is some great overlap and ambition that I'm seeing here out of the NRCS Planner designation that really is receptive with the CTD Planner certification. I will say too, we also have many people who are going for more than one planner certification, which you can absolutely do. You can achieve all 3 of them if you want to, and you could be at a different level at any one of them. You might be a level 3 farm planner, and you might be a level 1 or 2 dairy planner because it's something you do every so often, but maybe not your primary expertise. You might also achieve a level 1 riparian planner, as that is a planning pursuit that you need to do every so often and want to be involved in that process. Or you can put all your chips into one of these bins if you are just a riparian planner, dairy, farm, or otherwise. So it is totally up to you if you achieve one or many, and when you enter into any one of these, at what level. And I will come back to that level and what that looks like here in a little bit. So I want to move actually to our website and show you some of the CTD resources you have to access a lot of that certification. What I want to connect on really quickly though with some information, because I also want to show that when I move over to the website, is just to talk about training. Obviously, any of these certifications require you to access and achieve a lot of training opportunities. So the CTD has been working really hard over the last year and 2 years in particular on partnering with NRCS in particular to make sure that all district staff have opportunity to get into those NRCS trainings you need, whether that be for achieving one of their planner designation levels for them or for CTD training, or just to gain knowledge on subjects that you need more information about for your certification or for your learning for your job totally. So that's something we're working a lot on, as well as we've been working with Wade to collaborate on some of the information at the conference that is more relevant to our CTD planner certifications and our continuing education program that links to that. I'm going to talk a little bit more about what that CEU program is when we move to looking at the website, but also to say with both of those organizations as well as outside partners, we are now connecting all of these different continuing education opportunities with the different disciplines that we have. So there's a lot that we're doing with training and training collaboration to get you everything you need. So when I want to show you how to access some of these opportunities, documents, a lot of things that I've been talking about and referencing within the CTD webpage. I'm going to take another quick pause though and ask if there are any questions up to this point before I transition here. And again, I'm going to unmute everybody. So please feel free to ask a question by unmuting your phone or type anything into the chat box. So I'll take a quick pause and then open it up for any questions at this point. Okay, I've got a question here that is asking, will I be going into more detail as to the coursework needed to fulfill NRCS or CTD certifications? Absolutely, Kelsey, that is what I'm moving right here towards. So that's what I'm going to move here and show you where to find the certifications and go through what those criteria are. I'm mostly going to show you where to find that, and you can do it in a fine-tooth comb. But when I'm there, if you do have a specific question, please remember to type it again in the chat box. Okay, any other questions at this time? Okay, please feel free to continue to type in the chat box as needed. So when you go to the CTD web page, which is at wactd.org, and I posted that link at the beginning in the chat box at the beginning of the webinar, you can access it there. Of the tiles, as you link on our homepage, the tiles here you see, we've tried to pull out some of the bigger things that you're probably going to access: training, certification, our newsletter, new employee resources, our database, planner resources, AgLearn, or more about who we are. You can also find any one of these things with a little bit more detail in the menu that's provided at the top of the web page. I'm going to click on certification here and go to the primary page that shows certification. And right here, you can see we've got outlined those three different bins here. One is that CTD Planner certification with the NRCS certification on the other side, and the continuing education program in the middle, which I'll get to. Also, at the bottom of this, we tried to answer some of the bigger questions that people have. So at any point, if you have a little confusion about what something means, and or someone else does and you want to point them somewhere that may have the right answer, hopefully these are the three primary questions that we get from folks that will make sense to you. I do want to point out the top one here because I get this a lot. For any person who has gone to the NRCS conservation planning course, that is, you did an AgLearn session, then you went to the classroom for a week and you wrote a plan, or you went to boot camp, that is simply completion of the NRCS conservation planning 3-part course, which is one of the requirements for their certified conservation planner level. So know that that did not make you a conservation planner in any way, but met one of the criteria in getting there. Something I get really, really often, so I just wanted to throw it out. So I'm going to first start with the NRCS certification. So if you click here on this icon, where it will take you is to a page that very simply says, this is what the NRCS Conservation Planner designations are, and then here's where you can find what you need to achieve that. So hopefully this was the question I had earlier. So if you just expand this item, it'll essentially bring you to a PDF that you can print that says, for the Apprentice Conservation Planner, here are all of the things that you need to accomplish before you can attain that level. The next page is for the certified level. So obviously doing all the things for the apprentice level plus all these for certified, the next one master, and the last one for technical. So this is a great place for you to find, okay, what do I need to do in order to meet that criteria for the NRCS, or in the CTD certification, it says I have to be, a certified planner to be a level 2. What does that mean? Where do I find all that information? This is where you do. And as this is updated by NRCS, which occasionally they make changes to some of this, we will always make sure that it is updated on our webpage so that you know what that is. And we always try to put the updated date on here so that you know which version you have and if this is newer or the same as what you have. And there's also a link to find more information about that on the web if you want more. One of the things here I will also mention that we don't have information direct on our webpage is that NRCS also has a continuing education requirement to keep these designation levels. It is the same as the CTD requirement of 40 hours of continuing education units every 3 years. So we try to match it up so that you can do the two birds with one stone concept and make sure that you're doing all your continuing education units, and you get, if you're trying to maintain your NRCS and your CTD, you get them done at the same time. So that's where you'll find the NRCS Conservation Planner designations. We're going to go back to that previous page, and now I'm going to click on the CTD Planner Certification page. And here you'll find two things. Number one, you will find a very large button that says Apply Now, which hopefully after this webinar, you'll have more information on how to do that. And more importantly, you'll find for the Riparian Farm and Dairy Planner certifications, you will find the specific information you need to attain any one of these and at what level. So I'm going to pull up the Farm Planner certification here. Again, it will take you to a PDF that you can print out. And it just starts by talking about what is the purpose and objective to this certification. A couple things I want to point out: that you do not have to be certified to write a farm plan or riparian or dairy plan. This is, as I mentioned earlier, a process that you can use to verify your skill level, to enhance your skill level, and to show your partners that you're engaging in this. Will this be a requirement in the future for districts? I am uncertain. It's entirely possible, so it doesn't hurt to go through this process. There's no monetary fee or otherwise. It really is just a little bit of time for you to fill this out and get enrolled. I will say that this process does not address anything about the plan itself. This is just to support you as the planner. The farm plan and what elements go in there is completely separate from this certification process, which is just saying you as a planner have a certain level of expertise, and we are verifying that. It also does not do any areas of specialization within a planning. So for instance, if you are a dairy planner and you're also an air quality specialist, this does not validate or support or acknowledge your air quality specialty, just your dairy planning ability. So if you're a wetland specialist, again, the riparian one would just do, you're a good riparian planner, your wetland specialty, you need to do that external of this process and keep that up. Who can apply? Anybody. So all CD employees, as I mentioned, you can do one or all of the certifications at your will. And here are those certification levels that I talked about. A couple things just to read through is that, as I mentioned earlier, like level 1 meets the apprentice conservation planner designation. Level 2 does the same, but we also have said you meet that, plus you have done the conservation planning course part 2 and 3, which in the NRCS criteria, if you read through, is part of the certified planner level. So we may add on to what we think folks need here. And lastly, level 3 is you've got that certified conservation planner designation, plus some extra things. So it's just good for you to read through these and see what those extra things are. Without spending too much time in here, I really recommend that you read through this on your own. And if you have specific questions about a specific element in here, you're more than welcome to give myself a call or whoever is the lead for the specific certification that you're looking through. But it talks about your professional skills, education, expertise, and training, and how all of those things support the different levels that you want to apply at. And I will say too, let's say you have a lot of these elements for a level 2 or 3, but you're still missing some, or you're a brand new planner and you've got a few of the things, but you don't have everything to apply to level 2, just get in the process. So we highly recommend you just enter at a level 1 if you've got the basic criteria to get you in there. And this is for a variety of reasons. Once you're in this process, you really do get a lot of support from folks, and you can really do a lot of things with our continuing education program, etc. I will also mention too, and this is one of the questions that I got here. I'm going to just go right back up, sorry, to the level 1, 2, or 3 when we talk about apprentice planner, conservation planner. You will see there is an asterisk here that says that we do know that some folks, it's going to take you a year or two to obtain some of the trainings needed right now because there's such a backlog to get into some of the NRCS trainings, that you can still get in knowing that you're attaining some of those. Or if you are just going for the CTD Planner certification and you have attained any of the courses that were listed in that NRCS block, if you did it in another state or you did something very similar, you can, when you apply to any one of these in the application process, you can justify or provide an alternative to anything that can be reviewed. So if you say, you know, I don't have a specific one of the pieces in here, whether that be a water quality webinar or otherwise, but I took, you know, 5 years of water quality science in, you know, college. Can that qualify? Most likely, yes. So just know that I do know that some of these criteria can be a little bit difficult to attain. So we are more than welcome for folks to request an alternative be accepted. And that is, same goes true as I move through this, that shows any of the extra trainings or modules that we recommend folks have. And I'm going to take a pause. I've got a couple questions that have come in, so I just want to make sure that I address those here really quick. One of the questions, it says, and I think I just talked about this, in order to be a CTD level 1 farm planner, you need to be an NRCS apprentice level. And is the NRCS designation self-reported certification, or are there specific NRCS staff people you need to work with to receive that? That's actually a great question. So if you're going towards the NRCS certification, there's 2 ways that you can show that to the CTD. In the application process, it asks what courses that you've taken. You can just say, I've achieved the NRCS apprentice level by taking all of these specific courses. Or in AgLearn, there is now a way, once you're in AgLearn, you can load up the whole, I think it's like the learning set. I forget the exact words they use of any one of those. And once you achieve it, it kind of shows what level of planner you are, and you can print that out and provide that. So either way will work to show that you've met the criteria for that NRCS level when applying for the CTD certification. I also see there's a question, speaking of AgLearn, I realize that a lot of people have a lot of challenges with AgLearn. I personally still have challenges with AgLearn. Unfortunately, it is the primary way to access most of the prerequisites or courses for the NRCS trainings. It's unfortunate, and I realize that AgLearn is really challenging, and our state even has a lot of challenges with it. I've been told there is no way to bypass or access any NRCS training outside, or AgLearn training outside of AgLearn, which is really unfortunate. We do have a link in the CTD page, webpage, just for AgLearn info and who to contact to get some of the information. Hopefully some of this will actually answer the questions that you have. And the contact who at NRCS changes sometimes, who that individual is. So I recommend that you kind of check here for who that primary person is. I also see that for folks who have lost their AgLearn courses, so you took a course in AgLearn and you either didn't print that certificate, which I highly recommend you always print your certificates and have them for posterity. But if you didn't do that, some of them will, for the NRCS levels, you may have to redo those if they were AgLearn courses in order to get that training. Same for the CTD. If we have very specific ones, we need you to be able to verify that in some way. We're willing to work with individuals if you have a specific circumstance on the challenges there. Again, this happens really, really frequently, and it's really unfortunate. Or you might be able to work with someone at NRCS to find those or mine those. When they went over to their new system, a lot of information was lost. If you are someone who ever had 2 accounts, that probably really screwed you up, in that when the system went over, you had to choose an account, which means you might have lost one where some of those things were housed. So those are things to look to. The CTD cannot help you with anything inside of AgLearn. NRCS is the only entity that can help you fix AgLearn issues. We can only provide you the information of where to find those people or resources. Unfortunately, we can't do anything because we are not NRCS. So I apologize on behalf of NRCS, I suppose, or anyone who has troubles in there, but hopefully you can get through them. Okay. I just want to touch on a few more things in the certification, but please feel free to continue to put questions in the chat box as they come up. As mentioned, some of the trainings, we've got required trainings and at what levels, and or learning modules at what levels. No, for instance, these learning modules, we do get questions on these that say, you know, the name might have changed, the event may no longer be offered, or you took it somewhere else and it had a different name. We know that that happens, and so a lot of these might say recommended versus required, or please feel free in your application to offer up a reason why you can't achieve it or an alternative that you did achieve. So feel free with any of that. Other things like professional certifications can also be included, and a work product. So this is saying that not only do we want you to document your background expertise to support your planning, but also show us a product of that. And for each different level, you'll have a different number of plans that need to be submitted with your application to verify that. I know I've had a few questions about when you're doing your application, how do you submit these and how do you protect producer confidentiality? You can take the time to redact all information if you want to. We're just looking at were they written well? Did they have all the elements? Was it, you know, an implementable and a plan that was executable? So that's really what we're looking at. Or if you send hard copies, know that any hard copy plans will go back to you. So you will receive, they'll be reviewed and then returned back to you. So all we're doing is reviewing them for quality, not necessarily quantity per se. So they won't be marked up or anything else. And there is more guidance in here about what that looks like and how that process is conducted. And lastly, we ask for some references. So how do you work with others essentially and implement this? And obviously some type of an ethics standard that is also part of that. I'm going to come back to the continuing education and support a little bit, but just know that this is all outlined for you, that it talks about 40 hours every 3 years, which honestly is pretty attainable. That's not much at all. And these are going to be a variety of different things. We're still in the process of developing or adopting a system that isn't like an online forum that interacts with you, that shows you what all of these bonus CEUs are. But on our website now, we're trying to show the different events that qualify for CEUs. So you can see what qualifies and then start tracking those. And I'll show you a great way that you can plan and track these. And lastly, the application approval process, renewal process, all that information is in here so that you can look through that. When you're ready to apply for a certification, so you reviewed this, you've gathered all the info you have, you decided at what level you're going to go in for, then you can click on Apply Now, and it will lead you to a fillable PDF. In order to fill this out, you need to download it. So you can't fill it out here in this PDF viewer. You're going to need to download it in something like Adobe Reader, and then you can, it turns itself into a fillable PDF, which it may take a minute here. And that way it's a lot easier for you to fill out. Here we go. So And again, if you have any questions about this, please let us know. The only thing I'm going to show at the very end of this is for those who are submitting an application that you can either submit a hard copy to the address or you can submit it electronically. You can attach it as an email if it's under 10 megs as total, or you can provide a link to a Dropbox or other shared file link. So your choice on doing electronic or paper or a combination of both. If you do a combo, just let both of those, whatever you sent in, just let them know there's something else coming on the other end as well. Questions can go to certifications@wactd.org if you have any challenges doing any of this process. Okay. Couple other things that I want to show you in the time that we've got here. So here, hopefully that's where you can find the planner certifications. You can find how to apply. We've already talked a little bit about what are some of those trainings that you might need to get in there, whether the NRCS ones or the ones specifically under this one. So now you're saying, okay, now I've got this list of things that I need. How do I organize that? Two things. Number one, within the CTD site here, under training, you can either access it from the main page or the drop down, is we've got a training plan template that's now available for folks. So clicking on there, what you're going to get, and we just updated this for you, is hopefully an easy and great way to not only outline what do you need for training this year, but what do you need for continuing education if you're to that point yet. We've got a tab here that have all the NRCS planner requirements for each one of the levels to give you an idea of what that course is, the source, approximately how long it might take you, so that you can start when is this offered and when is it completed. I know, again, some of these have been really hard to access. In fact, I do have a question in here that talks about one of the courses folks need is Conservation Planning Business Tool Training or Toolkit. And no, that has not been offered yet. That's why NRCS is giving people until 2022, I think, to access all the courses that they need. So some of these might be offered this year, they might be offered 2 years from now. I'll show you where you can find that information. But just to kind of finish up here with the rest of the training plan template, we've got a tab here for the farm planner requirements, for dairy, and for riparian. So again, for each of the levels, gives you an idea what are those courses that need to be completed in here. And you can say, oh, I've already done it, or, oh, I need to plan that one. And then pulling all of that back to create your annual training plan for the year. So how do you figure out what you might be able to take this year and how you're going to find that? Once again, oops, sorry about that. Once again, coming back to the CTD webpage, this training page hopefully will be your best friend to try to find those things. If you click on upcoming training events, you're going to find what is going to be offered this coming year. And we're now trying to work with NRCS so we have an idea of what's coming the next or the next year after. It's a work in progress for us to try to create this 3-year training outlook for you, but we're really trying hard. And you can see within any one of these trainings that NRCS said they will be offering this year that we've also tried to say what CEUs that might apply to, if this is an NRCS required course, this is a CTD requirement for certification. So hopefully that's something you will see more often so that you can flag them on like, oh, I should see if I need this for my CTD certification farm level 2. So those are hopefully some more helpful resources for you to kind of get yourself in the loop. And just know that for us, this is a continuing evolution in the process and something that we continue to work towards with NRCS and with other partners to offer you all the trainings that you need. And I also had another question specific to a couple things here. I see there's a question about, is there someone who can help check on coursework status with each planner to keep them on track and help them prioritize seats? Two things I'm going to split out of there. One, it's an individual's responsibility to keep themselves on track for the where they are in achieving all of their training and making sure that they're getting in there and getting what they need. As far as prioritizing planners into NRCS courses, the CTD has a process for that they're employing. Know that oftentimes we have 40 seat requests for 5 seats offered, and it can be really difficult. In that case, NRCS last year in particular was really gracious in offering additional training events so that we could get people in there, or offering the same training 2 or 3 years in a row so that we can continue to get folks in who need that training. So we are working with them on that. You might have seen there was a training survey that came out not long ago, this training request form. This is something that we are trying to partner with NRCS when we know what trainings they have. Now the CTD is the one who will be sending that out to help coordinate individuals back into the trainings that they need so that we can show NRCS what the district demand is for the courses that they're offering. Again, hopefully for additional seats or additional courses or whatever may work out there. So again, that is a process in development, and it gets better all the time, but we're always still working on it. So just always be sure that you look for that, because we use that for the first round of prioritization into training events, and then it goes to open, and you'll always find them here on training events when more detail is provided for any of these courses. Again, other things like WADE is also going to be on here. Special webinars is going to be on here. So all sorts of good stuff that you need will be on the CTD training page. If at any time you've got a question on here or you want to know more, training@wacd.org is the email to ask those things. So, and I see another specificity question about a training that's needed, the hydric soils for wetland determination, and the ability and the fact that you may not see it on the training list. That might mean it's not this year, but it will be offered next year. So it's always one to stay abreast of. So in 2021, that hydric soils course is offered. There was a question, is that different than highly erodible land? Yes, that one, that HEL is a different training. And I can answer some of those more specific ones, questions like that. Feel free to shoot those my way. Okay, with the time that we've got remaining here, I just want to touch on a couple other things. Again, we talked about the challenges that we often have with AgLearn. So the CTD also has a database where you can track and upload and store a lot of your training coursework completion information. So obviously you're going to have to continue doing AgLearn, but you can also duplicate it here. This is also a great way that we know the experts in certain disciplines around the state, and we can query those and get information out to you guys that's relevant to what you're doing. So feel free to go in and create an account in the database that helps us know what type of a planner you are, so we can better tailor information to you, and for you to be able to track information and your training certifications, et cetera, so that they're not lost. As well, please feel free to browse through all the other things that we've got in our database. But a really important one also is our newsletter. This is the primary source for us getting information out to folks on upcoming trainings and registrations for those, any changes in the certification process or otherwise. So feel free to sign up for that in GovDelivery and make sure that you are getting that and that it's not getting spammed on a monthly basis. We try to get that out to you as much as we can. And you can also always just access it here from our website if you would prefer to do that. So a little bit of information on how to get into that process as well. So just to wrap up a few other things here. I talked about the database, I talked about the website, I talked about the newsletter. So that leaves us with questions. So I am now going to unmute everybody again and open it up for any questions that folks may have. You can also put them in the chat box. I will pay attention to that. If for some magical way I answered all the questions that you had regarding certification, thank you so much for joining us today. And feel free to contact myself at info@wactd.org. You can do the certification training database whatever your needs are. Feel free to contact that individual with any specific question anytime. We always try to get right on those and back to people whenever we can. And hopefully our website, which is updated all the time, is a great resource for you to find a lot of what you need. And what I do recommend on your journey through the certification process is that you start by going to our webpage and just downloading that document that I showed you that has the specific information for that certification you're interested in, and just take a read through. And then any remaining questions that you have, any information you're curious about, contact us. Any trainings you realize that you need, start transferring those over to a training template and training plan so that you can then start a planning process for yourself on the time frame it's going to take to get where you want to go. And you can also then really be keeping track when a training pops up. It's in your database. Hey, I know I need that. So great tips and ways to just keep yourself going with this process. Last thing I probably should have mentioned to everyone as well when I was there is that on our the page where for certification and for applying for that, we extended, and hopefully everyone noticed that, the application deadline to April 17, 2020. In general, we will probably have 2 application deadlines per year. That will be the first one because we really wanted to be able to acknowledge folks in June at Wade to really show who we've got going through the system. If you miss this April deadline, keep working on your application. You can turn it in at any time. It just won't be reviewed until the next segment, most likely, which would be just later in 2020. So this is our first round to get yours in for this review and approval cycle. Okay, so with that, please feel free to ask questions. I've got one in the chat box. It's asking about for the CTD Conservation Farm Planner levels in the training template. It talks about the amount of conservation plans reviewed. In order for the plan review to qualify as a planner who is reviewing the plan, need to be a certain level planner through NRCS and CTD. I'm not sure what that's in relation to, but maybe this will clarify it. What that meant in the training template is that this conservation plan review is that in order to achieve the level 1 in your application, you are submitting one plan, and that plan will be reviewed by the CTD Technical Review Committee for that application process. For level 2, it's 2 plans and so on. So hopefully that clarifies to you what that actually meant. That's not an internal process for you, but it's part of your CTD application process for that certification. Okay. Any other questions? Questions on the phone and or additional questions in the chat box? I do have a question about when do we think we'll have the forest planner designation in CTD? Our goal was in this year, 2020, that would get developed. So our goal, hopefully in 2021, that's available for application. We really want to get these 3 through and make sure before we release, 6 of these, that we'll have to iron out any little speed bumps so we can do 3 and make sure these are really slick and easy for folks. And then we'll get additional certifications online. But forest is number 4 on the list. Hopefully by 2021, you'll be applying for it. Okay, other questions?
How many people you plan on going through this program this year?
I don't know. That is a great question. How many people do we expect to go through this? I wish it was every single planner in the state. Um, it's uncertain. By the kind of graphs I showed earlier about those who were interested in pursuing it, that would probably be in the 40 to 50 range of individuals. Whether folks are ready to get all of their materials together and in by the April deadline for the first round is uncertain, but I would love to see that many come in this entire year. And I know that will increase as people are able to access and complete the trainings that they need, all the NRCS trainings, but it's uncertain. Could be 1, could be 30, could be 120. Surprise me. Maybe if, as long as everyone on this call applies, that would be a great number. Other questions? Okay, well, I will stay on the line if anyone is trying to get a mute button off. I will stay on the line if you want to continue to ask questions. I will end the recording of the session, but know that this was recorded if you want to share it or listen to it again, and it will be posted on the CTD webpage, as well as all the materials and anything I showed in the webinar today will be posted up on the CTD web as well. So hopefully you can find everything you need, and if you can't, just feel free to email me. But thank every one of you for attending today and taking the time to learn more about this. And if there are any other webinars that you would love to see or have the CTD do that would help clarify any information or follow-ups even from today's, please feel free to contact me or type it in the chat box. Your feedback is what makes anything we do and all of our products more useful and better. And so I appreciate any feedback that we can ever get from you all. So thank you for your time today at minimum.
Thank you.